To take this forward, I would now request, for the unveiling of the book, I would request Millie, who was already here, but I will call her again. She is the publisher from Penguin. Preeti, who is the marketing head of Penguin, to come onto the stage. Would request Mr. Venu Nair, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of Trent Limited. Under the Trent, they manage Westside, Landmark, and Zudio. Ladies, you know whom to approach for the discounts. And none other than Mr. Anil Dharkar, please on the stage. Mr. Parikshit Sahni, the author of this book, and none other than Shri Amitabh Bachchan ji. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for all the people to unveil the book. I now hand over the stage to our three eminent panelists who will talk about the book and take you through the journey of the book. Over to you, Mr. Dharkar. The show is yours now. Sorry.
You're going to read? Oh, nice. Right in the beginning or later? Okay. Okay, here we are. Are we all here? We can do that ourselves. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. It's lovely to see a full house in spite of the weather. Mr. Bachchan has been on a tour of the city, which he didn't intend to, but he's here. As always, he never lets anyone down. Parikshit, let me start with you. Your father died in 1973. That's 46 years ago.
59. He was 59.
He was 59, but it was 46 years ago that he died. My question is, why did it take you so long to write the book? Why didn't you do it earlier?
Sir, I wouldn't have, even if I tried very hard, had it not been for a couple of people who started kicking me in the shins. One was an editor about 5-6 years ago in Delhi. Then there was a gentleman called Ali Peter John, who's sitting somewhere here. And a friend of mine from LA, a lady called Sayal, Harshi Sayal Gill. they just got onto my neck and caught me and said, "Chadi leke ke likho." And I had no way of getting out, so I had to write. But the strange thing is that once I started writing it, I was given the advice by Ali, "Pehle khopdi mein pakao." So that was a very great revelation. The moment I started thinking about it, a flood of memories came back, and the laptop opened and it all came out in torrents. And the strange thing is that I wrote the first 2 chapters, and then the book wrote itself. I didn't know how it happened.
Do you think someone was guiding you?
I had the feeling, sir. I had strangely felt the presence of my father very strongly, and I felt I owed it to him to. People know him as a fine actor, but there are very few people like Brother Amitabh and his dad, who was very close to my father, who knew him more than as just an actor. So I thought it's high time people came to know about the other side of him as a father, as a brother, as a friend, as a husband. So that's what made me. I felt that I owed it to him, because now I'm getting on in years myself. It's high time I wanted my kids to know about him, because they were born after he passed away.
But tell me, was it an experience that made you sad or happy, or because there are a lot of very touching moments and some very difficult portions in the book, which must have been quite cathartic to write, and were they difficult to write?
Sir, I'd like to recite a poem by Shelley. We look before and after and pine for what is not. And our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. And our sweetest dreams are those that sing of saddest thought. So there was an element of elevation at times, and of course, an underlying sadness, which I feel all sons feel when they miss their parents, their fathers. So at certain moments, I became very emotional. And at other moments, I remembered the good moments when we were together in Gulmarg, for instance, where we joked around and fooled around in the Dal Lake, for instance. So there were happy moments, but there were a lot of sad moments. And many chapters, I couldn't help weeping, because, I brought back, I saw him in a light that I'd never seen him before.
Writing made you see him in that light?
Well, I'm now a lot older than what he was when he died. I'm nearing my 80th year now. So in those years, I didn't understand him. I was much younger. But now when the memories came back and I looked back and I realized it's very difficult to understand your parents in entirety, you see. And I realized that he was much greater than I had thought him to be. Many sides of him which were revealed to me. He always said a man and his performance should be like an iceberg. I feel the same way about Amitabh Bachchan Sahab. It should be 1/3 above the water and 3/4 below.
2/3.
2/3 below, sorry. 1/3 above the water, 2/3 below. Because that's what doesn't show. But that's what gives weight and solidity to the iceberg. So I got a glimpse of that 2/3 below the water. And that shook me up.
Wonderful. Amitabh, you've done a really nice foreword to the book. Are you going to read it? Oh, lovely. Please, yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Never have the speakers that came before me been as subtle as they were regarding the word late. And I think I counted about 5 times when they mentioned late, and kind of gave me a side look and saying, "You're late, buddy." I just want to clarify this. I was told that the function was at the NCPA, and when I was touching Marine Drive, my office tells me, it's actually Taj Lands End, sir. So you can imagine turning around and coming here about 15 minutes late is quite a miracle. Parikshit called one day and said, couldn't you write the foreword to this book that I'm writing on BALRAJ, and I readily agreed. I thought I'd just read it out because anything else that I say today would not be able to go beyond what I've already expressed. Be like BALRAJ SAHNI. He's in the film industry, yet out of it. So advised my father, soon after my first encounter with the film world on a private visit, seeking a job. Some of my experiences were disturbing. They troubled me and gave me reason to believe that maybe I was making a mistake in my choice. But no, father was right. BALRAJ was the epitome of my father's vision. When he looked at you with his endearing smile, extending his arms in embrace, and spoke, you felt it was your heart that spoke, not his. It was as though the air around him came from a different world, a world that embodied gentility, the goodness of nature, the resonance of divinity. And as I drive past his home in Juhu, as I often do, I cannot but look at it in despair. Time and desolation have ravaged it and added to it what did not belong to its owner. Diverse conditions are the fatalities of life, and the house symbolizes this reality. But I believe that even though appearances may change, structures may decay, the purity of the heart endures, lives, and breathes. And as Parikshit sets about putting his pen to paper to narrate his father's life, I send my heartfelt best wishes and look upon him with gratitude, for he will narrate what he would need to know about the celebrated and distinguished soul called BALRAJ SAHNI. I profess to be an actor by profession, and some of my work-related observations guide us in our careers. When I saw BALRAJ on the screen, it was not the character he was portraying I saw, but only the purity of his heart. The way he moved, the way he spoke, and the way he expressed himself were unique and straight from the heart. वो जब डायलॉग बोलते थे तो ऐसा लगता था कि यही सही है. Commented a person when I asked him what he thought about BALRAJ as an actor. There was a refined smoothness about him in all his performances. If I could have, I would have run up to him on the screen, touched his feet, and embraced him. His cultured and literary background was evident, as I perceived during his meetings and reflective moments with my father. He always came across as one who lived life on his own terms, never derogatory about others and their beliefs, yet respectful to his own. There was a simplicity in his being, in entertaining you with a cup of tea in his home, inviting you to play a game of table tennis in the patio in his home, the gentle wave of his hand as he passed by you on his horse, ridden without any frills in Kashmir, quietly without accoutrements, climbing up to Gulmarg. I know, for I was a party to all. And every time I drive past his home in Juhu, I recall with great affection the man of immense grace and nobility, BALRAJ SAHNI.
Thank you. You said in your foreword that he was in the industry and out of it. What do you mean by that?
This was actually given to me by my father. I was on a mission in the early years, around 68, 69, to the city of Mumbai to seek a job in the film industry. And I I was asked to do a screen test, which I did thanks to some very well-known people. I'm not going to name them now. And later on in the evening, they said, well, you know, you're here for a day. We are going out to a party. Why don't you come along? And I went along with them. And at the party, I saw things which were kind of disturbing. I mean, everyone was happy, and they were having their drinks and eating their food. And then some discussion took place between one of the celebrities and a journalist, and a fight broke out. And when I say a fight, it was actually a physical fight. You know, they were punching each other and stuff like that. And what was really amazing was that the hostess, who was also a very prominent celebrity, was unconcerned with this punch-up and was serving up, what would you like to have, sir? And then just serving the food all over. And I felt this was rather odd, so I just stepped out of the house. And when I came back, I narrated this to my father and said, you know, you have to be like Balrajji. You have to be in it to get out of it.
How would you describe BALRAJ Sahni's acting style?
I just mentioned it. He was just, you never felt that he was performing.
Yes.
He was always so real, so simple. And as I said, when you ask somebody on the street, he said, "वो जब बोलते थे तो ऐसा लगता था कि यही सही है." That's a great compliment.
Right.
Because many of us are incapable of getting that kind of compliment from a common man on the street. And when he thinks that this is what his performance was like, then you tend to believe it.
By the way, Parikshit, this is a really well-written book. So you obviously inherited some of the writing ability from your father, who was a writer, apart from being an actor. And your uncle,
Bishop Sahni, yeah.
who was a full-time writer.
Yeah, he was a full-time writer.
So there's something has come into you, which I wish you had realized earlier.
I don't know, Anil Saab. I think, again, Shelley has said that poetry should come to a man like leaves to a tree. Otherwise, it needn't come at all. So, writing is something that comes to you like leaves to a tree, you know. It is something, I mean, it can't be learned, it can't be copied, it cannot be inherited, I think.
He's a poet too. Yeah.
No, really, it's something, I don't know, I've been writing since I was in school, I've been writing since I was in college, I did literature in college. And I've been writing ever since, but nobody took it seriously. They said, "Ye to actor aadmi hai yaar. Kya likh ke le aa rahe ho?" I went to several papers and said, "Please publish this article or this little thing I've printed." Some people did, and the others dismissed me as being, "Yeah, you're an actor."
But you had a story published in the Illustrated Weekly of India.
Yeah, that credit goes to a lady called Anis Jung. I wrote about 2 or 3 paragraphs and she saw them. And she said, "Sit down now and finish them." And she made me sit till about 3 o'clock in the morning on my underwood and type it out. And I kept saying, "Yaar, chodo ye, kaise ke liye kar rahi ho? Thak gaya hu. Khatam karo, khatam karo, khatam karo." And she took it and gave it to the Illustrated Weekly, and they liked it. And it was published. That was Anis's doing. I think I owe her a great debt of gratitude because she's the one who started the whole ball rolling, you know.
Right. In the book, you often refer to your stormy relationship with your father.
Yeah.
But I also saw a lot of extremely loving episodes. So it was a kind of mix, right? But he was never harsh with you.
No. On the contrary, I think he told me very early in life that just forget that I'm your dad. Let's be good friends. I had my first cigarette with him. I had my first glass of beer with him. He said, "Don't do anything behind my back." Early in life, he even said, "Don't call me dad. Don't call me Pitaji. Call me by my name." So he was like a friend for the rest of his life. He was a very strange man. We discussed things that no father would discuss with his son. And he never ever raised his voice. He didn't correct me. He didn't tell me I was doing something wrong. He didn't yell at me or nothing. He just kept saying, "You're a great guy to just learn to live and live to learn. That was his motto.
So were you a spoiled child?
Beg your pardon?
Were you a spoiled child?
I was, yes. I was thoroughly spoiled. Thoroughly spoiled. Absolutely. And I think many of us star sons are. Not all, of course, their parents are. But I lived in boarding schools. Mainly, I didn't live with the family ever, almost. Only in the holidays. And in the boarding schools, I was singled out. Arey bhai, Balraj Sahni Saab ka beta hai. So I thought I was a big shot, which harmed me a great deal. It was only in Russia that I felt very happy because nobody knew who the hell I was. Nobody knew who was Balraj Sahni, and I felt I was myself. But in college and in schools and where I went, they thoroughly spoiled me. Guys were nice to me because, arey bhai, Sahni Saab ka beta hai. So that's it.
You must have grown up under the shadow of your father.
Indeed.
Well, that brief answer doesn't give me a lead into another question. You could be more helpful.
Okay. I'm going to narrate a story then. I've said this many times before in several other events, but because you've raised this issue, I think I'll talk about it. I'm referring to a poem my father wrote. It's called Wasiyatnama. Every one of us at a certain age writes a will. And I won't go into the recitation of the poem, but I'll just give you the essence. He says that, in the poem, he says that, a time comes in your age when your friends and well-wishers say, umr kafi ho gayi hai yaar, ek wasiyatnama likh do, life ka kuch pata nahi hota hai, aur जो कुछ भी देना है अपने परिवार को, बेटों को, ये सब अभी से तय कर दो, क्योंकि बेटों को भी बड़ा आजकल सामना करना पड़ता है अपने आप को साबित करने के लिए कि हाँ भाई ये मेरे पिता हैं. तो he wrote the whole thing, and one of the things he said is, look, I don't have much to give and leave behind for my children. I just have my written works, and later on in his life he used to go for a walk and pick up a stone, and he used to find an imagery in it and draw a few lines, and it would come out. And he says, these are the rocks and these poems that I have. But some of the most important thing that he said in that poem, which was that what are you going to leave behind? And he said,
Can you recite that bit?
Put saput kyun dhan sanchay, put kaput kyun dhan sanchay. And then he wrote that the last line, and he said, मेरे बेटे बेटे होने से मेरे उत्तराधिकारी नहीं होंगे. मेरे बेटे बेटे होने से मेरे उत्तराधिकारी नहीं होंगे. जो मेरे उत्तराधिकारी होंगे वो मेरे बेटे होंगे. So Parikshit is an excellent example. He is the true inheritor of his father, and therefore you are the true Uttaradhikari.
But there was one aspect of BALRAJ SAHNI which I would never have suspected, which comes out in the book. And I'll give you both that incident. I actually wanted Parikshit to read it, but he says a bit long. So very briefly, BALRAJ SAHNI was very fond of swimming. And he took, how old were you when he took you into the sea?
About 10, maybe.
Okay, so 10-year-old Parikshit goes with his father into the sea. And the sea is very rough, and Parikshit says, I'm scared, I don't want to go into this. He says, come on, and coaxes him into the water. And then they find themselves being dragged into the sea, deeper and deeper and deeper.
The tide was going out.
Yes, the tide was going out. And this little boy, and I think anyone would have been scared. I would have been screaming. And it goes on, and BALRAJ SAHNI is absolutely calm, and he's saying, why are you worried? The tide is going in, it'll come back, and we'll come back with it. So don't fight it, just relax. You know how to swim, and the sea makes you float, so just stay there. And they went deeper and deeper into the sea. And then finally, they find a little boat coming to rescue them. And there's an Englishman paddling a kayak, and he comes near them, and BALRAJ Sahni says, go away, we don't want you. So Parikshit is saying, but Dad, we must get into that boat. Someone's come to save us. And he just refuses. And when he sees this in Englishman, he says, you Englishman, we don't want you here. You go. So of course the Englishman has some choice swear words for Indians and goes back. And these two stay in that water for 2 hours. And then the tide goes back and there they are. That must have been traumatic for you.
Yeah, I shivered.
Mike.
I thought that was the end of my life. I mean, I was petrified absolutely. And I thought Dad had finally gone mad because he started singing songs. And he started floating and he started joking around. And I said, ye pata nahi kya ho gaya, Dad ko yahan mar rahe hain, yahan pe daddy. And then this Englishman, he came and said, come on, get into the boat. Because a lot of people had collected on the seashore. We were about a mile out and they guessed that they're in trouble. So this Englishman came and I got hold of the boat immediately because I thought, God said, he said, chodo, just leave the boat. It was an order. I said, I think Dad is cracked up or something. Here is a guy who come to, sort of save us. And, but Dad told this fellow, he said, this Englishman, we don't need you. We can look after ourselves. Please go back. And that fellow said a lot of things about Indians. You crazy Indians, that you want to kill yourself and your son also. And yes, sure enough, we floated after that for a long while. He kept singing revolutionary songs. He was a Marxist. Mil ke chalo, mil ke chalo, mil ke chalo. Are bhai, mil ke chalo. All these sort of things. I said, yaar, kya mil ke chalo, yahan mar jayenge. And ye waqt ki awaaz hai, mil ke chalo, and all that jazz. But anyway, it was I can't tell you, if you only have to experience it, the tides during the monsoons are horrendous. When they drag you out, I mean, you can't hold on to the bottom because they just pull you out. And when it sent you back, it was like a miracle because I did start swimming a little bit. He had taught me a little bit. And it really literally threw us on the sand. We left near Palm Grove Hotel, which is called, I don't know, something else now, and came out at the creek, which is about 2-3 miles away. And then I went to sleep because I was exhausted. And I was glad that my life is saved. And Dad looked at me, smiled. He was smiling when I opened my eyes. He pulled me up and he said, "Dekho, beta." There are going to be a lot of times when these sort of situations will arise in your life. And remember, the tide always comes back. So always ride the tide, don't fight the tide. And that has helped me through many crises in life.
Well, that could have been the last lesson you learned in your life, but...
I thought it was.
BALRAJ Sahni was a real Marxist, and he very deeply believed in the Marxist philosophy.
Absolutely, completely, utterly.
And you were talking of him singing revolutionary songs and
Mil
so on.
ke chalo, mil ke chalo, mil ke chalo.
But there are wonderful scenes in the book which shows his Marxist leanings. There's one of these high society parties where he comes wearing a dhoti and
Lungi. Lungi kurta,
Yeah,
Punjabi style.
and he doesn't like this kind of socializing with, this useless chatter and pretentious chatter. So he's constantly pulling everyone down. And then he finds a waiter who's also Punjabi. And he finds he's speaking a different kind of Punjabi from what he knows. So he gets a drink for the waiter. They sit on the floor and they have a long chat. Of course, the hostess is not very pleased. And Anyway, the story goes on. I'll leave you to read it. There's also the story of about shooting, where everyone has to wear jackets. Can you talk about that? You remember what I'm talking about?
Sorry. You see, I was not trained as an actor. I did my college work. I went to the institute in Moscow to study film direction and writing and editing. And I don't know, I met Nehru there. There's a separate story. I'm writing about it for you. Send it to you for perusal. And he gave me a speech, and he said that, you know, India was, is your mother, you should go back and all that. So I came back to India full of feelings that one must serve one's motherland and all that, because the Russians really somewhere in those days, Soviet Union, they looked down on India, and I didn't like it. So I said, I must be of service. How can I be of service? As an actor, what can I do? And I really became an actor because of Dad. People thought, yeah, आदमी तो ठीक लग रहा है, थोड़ा बहुत तो सीख लिया होगा बाप से. बना दो इसको एक्टर, ले लो फिल्म में. But I made a film, a banner, a production called BALRAJ SAHNI Productions. And I made some television serials because making films is a very tough job. And through those, I thought maybe I could serve, be of service to the country and, you know, say some good things through those scripts. And one day I was shooting with these, just for Yash Raj, Yashji's video division. He liked one of my stories and he said, you make it. And one day I was shooting till very late in Rajkamal Studios, so there are overtime ho gaya. So I told this, my production guy, I said, keep the important guys, inke close-ups lene hai. Baki junior artists ko bolo, they can go. And there was one very, very old man, he must have been in his 70s, who didn't go. और 3 बज गए, मैंने कहा, sir, I went to him, I said, sir, आप क्या कर रहे हो? थक गए होगे, please go. He said, sir, नहीं, मैं आपकी वजह से नहीं रुका. ये बलराज साहनी प्रोडक्शन है, इसके नाम की वजह से रुका हूँ. और वो इसलिए क्योंकि आप तो ब्रदर ब्रदर बोलते रहते हैं सबको. वो वाकई हमारे ब्रदर थे. I said, please explain. He said, देखो ऐसा था, हम लोग शूटिंग कर रहे थे. In those days there was no AC, and we had to wear jackets sometimes.
That time there was no AC.
Yeah. And after shots, the junior artist was supposed to stay back on the set and not take off their jackets. But the stars were supposed to take off their jackets and sit in front of the fans. But they noticed that Dad had not taken off his jacket. And the assistant came several times to tell him, Sari Saab, aap utar dijiye coat, garmi ho rahi hai, pasine aa rahe hain aapko. He ultimately didn't say anything for a couple of minutes, and then he said, देखो, अगर मुझे पसीने आ रहे हैं तो इन जूनियर आर्टिस्ट के साथ क्या हो रहा है? इन्होंने सब ने कोट पहने हुए हैं. Sir, that is not allowed. इनको तो order है कि इनको पहन के रखने पड़ेंगे. तो फिर हम भी पहन के रखेंगे. It is only when the director came and told these guys, okay, take off your jackets, that he took off his jacket. So that old man said, वो हमारे भाई थे. आप तो ऐसे ही बोलते रहते हैं. And he had that innate love for not just humanity, yes, but also for, you know, the underdog.